Get more seats in the side here as well. There are more seats up at the front. Hello? 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 Is everybody relaxed if we start the meeting now? Is it a good time to start? I know people are coming in and can find themselves a seat. Thank you for coming. My name's Keith Priest, and I'm really standing in for Sadie Morgan, your president. I used to be I was the last president. Unfortunately, she can't make today, and she really wanted to be here, and I drew the short straw. So the purpose of me being here is to really to introduce Hugo and to give a small introduction as to what this is about. I'm a member of council, and I ought to perhaps do a little bit of background, because council are intensely aware that a lot of the people in this school, this will be the first time that they've been through this process. We're all lucky enough to be part of an organisation where we participate in the governance of ourselves. And the way that works, in my crude description, is that the association elects a bunch of trustees, the council, and the council have the legal responsibility of responding to the Charities Commission, because the school and the association are a charity, and take the legal obligations that are going with it, and are charged with being responsible for everything. They, in turn, delegate the responsibility of running the school to the school director. And that's done on a contract which runs for 5 years, which happens to be up next year. In that contract, if the director indicates that they want to continue, there are also other clauses that says that the director must demonstrate that they maintain the support of the school community. The school community is everyone who studies here, everyone who works here, everyone who's contracted, and the council are included in that. And so this meeting is the start of that process. And I was going to hand over to Hugo, but before I do, everybody would really, really like you to take part in this process really carefully. Getting everybody to participate. One, it's quite a privilege to have this role in the governance for all of us, and it would be a shame if everyone didn't take full advantage of that. So please follow the process, and please cast your vote in the referendum. Then when the referendum is cast, the council will know what you think about the situation and can act accordingly. I think Hugo started his involvement at the school at the same time as I was studying here, and that was 40 odd years ago. So Hugo knows more about these processes. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. So I'm going to hand over to Hugo Hinsley. For those of you who are new students, he's a director in the graduate school, co-director of urbanism and housing. And he's going to take you through the processes. When he's finished, we'll try and answer whatever questions you may have. But there are a whole series of other meetings arranged, and meetings can be arranged, and you can arrange a meeting yourselves to discuss this and answer any queries anyone might have. So if I could hand over to Hugo. Hugo will take you through a presentation that shows you how everything's connected and how this process works. Hugo. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. As Keith says, I've been involved in the AA for many years, since 1974, both teaching in the diploma school and in the graduate school. And from time to time, as these cycles of renewal have gone on, I've also often been involved in helping to chair meetings in the school community, or to be part of various different organizations that have evolved at different times in the school, to improve the liaison and the discussion that's absolutely vital between students and teachers and administrative staff and the council, all of whom make up the school community. And it's very important that we understand that. The school community is a forum for discussion and exchange between all of those parties, so that council, as Keith has said, who are the elected trustees and the legal guardians of the AA, are fully informed and can discuss changes and developments in the school as we go along. Most of you, the great majority of you, are new to this, because the last time we had the standard cycle of reviewing the reappointment of a director was 4 years ago, and many of you have joined the school since then. So the purpose of this meeting today is just to fill you in some of the background information and the procedures. And as Keith said, having done that, we can open up to any number of discussions and question and answer sessions and so on across the school. Council has offered to arrange a time when members of council will be here for a question and answer session, and any parts of the school and school community can do that at any time over the next few weeks before we get to a point where we're asked to vote on a referendum. as Keith said, we are not just a school of architecture. The AA is an association worldwide with over 3,000 active members, and it is, of course, very well known around the world as a place where there is an open and critical debate about architecture. And many people also think that that's partly evolved in such a rich way because of our constitution and the way in which we govern ourselves. We were established over 160 years ago as an independent association. At that time, there was no education for architects. If you wanted to be an architect, you had to become a pupil in an office. And there were so many of those young pupils in London who were really frustrated. There was no place that they could get an education. There was nowhere they could meet. So 20 of them formed an association. In English law, any group of people can form an association, and named it the Architectural Association, so they could rent some space, start to have studios, collect a library together, and most importantly, start to invite interesting architects to come and talk and to lecture, so that they could develop their own work and their own ideas outside of their offices. The AA is very rare, as Keith said, in educational organizations in the world, in that it is independent, totally independent. It is self-governing. Through the council, you and everyone active in the school is effectively the government of the school, and self-funded. We don't rely on government handouts to survive, because if we did, those first two elements, independent and self-governing, would disappear. So whenever that issue has come up, the school's been very clear. If we would have to go towards becoming part of the government administration, we would rather close the school. And that's happened several times, that discussion. Now, we've been using various terms: the school community, the association. This is a very simple diagram. You see on the left, the school is all students who are currently registered in the school, and all staff, that's both administrative staff and teaching staff, with a current contract in the school. So that's not, for example, people who are doing a part-time, come in and do some juries and so on. It's people who are on contract. This meeting is a meeting of the school community, and so the council is added into that mix. So you have all the students, all the staff, and the council members. Now, some school community meetings can be called to be voting meetings. This is not a voting meeting, this is an information meeting. And if it's a voting meeting, then people who don't fit those categories, in other words, students who are not currently registered but are interested, or people who are teaching in the school but do not have a contract, they would not be able to be at the meeting. And it may be that today there are one or two people who are not either staff with a contract or students who are currently registered or members of council, which is fine for today because it's an information meeting and it's great that everybody has information. If later on we have to move to decision-making meetings, then that will be made very clear in the calling notice exactly who the constituency of the school community is. But then the biggest category of all is the association, which includes the first three categories, but then adds in all around the world people who have asked to and have been accepted as members of the association. So they are voting members, and when it comes to the formation of a new council, it is the whole of that association which votes. When it comes to selecting the director of the school, it is the school community that has a referendum to advise council of its wishes. This may or may not make it slightly clearer. It's an attempt in a very simple way to show how the school fits inside the association. So the bigger circle, which includes all the membership, including the school community, you're all members of the association, as well as being teachers or students in the school. The council, the governing body, which is 18 and always is 18 people on a revolving elected basis, and the director, who's the chief executive of the AA, as well as being head of the school, and is directly employed by the council. The council is supported by a secretary who answers to the council, not employed by the school, but employed directly by the council. Kathleen, many of you will have met her in other meetings, is currently the secretary to the association. Now, inside that big bubble, you have the smaller bubble, which is the school. The only person who appears twice in the bubble is the director, because as well as being director, the chief executive of the AA, he is also the academic director, the head of school. And the school community referendum, what we're about to be asked to take part in, advises council on the selection or reappointment of someone to take that role. But the contract and the details are then between the director and council. So it's a very unusual model, one which is extremely flexible and allows the maximum opportunity to select good people and to allow them to engage in the most direct way with the development of the school. There's no bureaucracy, or very, very little, and this is, again, a very unusual model of the AA. So I hope that makes it a bit clearer. You can see the current school community is about 1,000 people, about 750 students, about 140 academic staff, 80 administrative staff, and the fixed number of 18 council members. Now, the normal cycle, the procedure for the renewal of a director's contract is that in a 5-year contract, sometimes previously they've been 4-year contracts, most recently over the past 4 or 5 elections they've been 5-year contracts. In the last year, the director discusses with council whether or not both parties are interested, would wish to continue. And it might be that the director says, well, no, actually, I'm going on to do other things. It might be that council says, look, we're really fed up with you and we are not interested. If both parties do wish to continue, which is the case now, council then seeks the opinion of the school community through a referendum, which is a vote by secret ballot. Some of you will have been here earlier this year when we also did a referendum, same procedure, about the degree awarding powers, when all members of the school community were asked to give their opinion. I'll give you details of that in a minute. If, on the other hand, one of those parties says no, then the school community proceeds to elect a search committee, and that search committee starts to look for a range of candidates who are interested in standing, and the whole procedure starts in a different way, obviously, to try and seek a new person to take the job. And as Keith said at the beginning, the council members are directors of the company and trustees of the charity, with the legal powers and responsibilities that go with that. They have to be satisfied and have to be visible to the outside world as the people who are legally in control of this bizarre organisation. And as Keith will tell you, that can sometimes be a fairly bumpy ride. Council makes the final decision based on the advice of the school community. Remember, the school community includes council, so it's not like the sort of some outside body. The school community is part of this whole process of discussion and debate. This is the example we had in March of this year, when an important decision arises in the AA. Normally the council will ask the school community for its opinion. And in this case, the very significant discussions around whether or not the AA should move towards seeking degree awarding powers was considered to be important enough that it should come to the school community. It did. There was an organised referendum with an open ballot period of 2 weeks, at the end of which the votes were as shown there. 91.3% said yes, 88.7% said no, on a turnout of 61%. That result was then given back to council in order to inform them of the wishes of the school community. Council then acted upon that in the way they thought fit, and that process is continuing. I should say that all the minutes of council meetings, all of the documents about the constitution of the AA, documents that I've already referred to in terms of the diagrams and so on, they all exist both online and they exist in the library as paper copies. So anybody in the school community that wants to find out more can both ask people in the AA who've been here for longer and may know about it, but can also, if they wish, do their own research both online and through the library where all those documents exist. So, turning to the current process. Bret's current contract as director runs out in July of next year. In March of this year, Bret requested to the council that he be considered for reappointment, and the council said it was interested. So that's step one of the process. On the 3rd of November, Bret presented an outline of his 5-year strategy for 2015 to 20 to council, so that they are informed of what he is going to be proposing now to the school community. As you probably know, Bret has now set up a school meeting for this Friday at lunchtime, not in the lecture hall here, but over in the rear presentation room, where he will set out that 5-year plan and start the process of questions and answers about the details of that. So everyone in the school community can begin to get a full picture of what it would be if there was a decision that Bret should continue. His plans, his ideas, what he's aiming to do over the next 5 years. So that's one sort of information. Inside the school, in units across different parts of the school, we can have as many meetings and discussions which are more about question and answer sessions within the school for people who are not clear, people who want to try discussing different models and so on. All of that is up for discussion over the next few weeks. Before Friday, I hope council will announce the actual timetable for the opening and closing of the ballot. That'll be done electronically or in person in the school, as we did with the previous ballot. And the results of that will be available comfortably before the end of this term, so we know where we're going. Obviously, we don't want to roll over into January of next year without being clear about what direction we're going in. So that's the timetable. And this is just repeating what I've said. I was running ahead of myself. So council's offered to arrange discussion meetings. There will then be a 2-week period when votes can be cast, ballot papers sent to all members who are eligible to vote, and they can vote either on site. There will be representatives of the voting organisation in the bar and in other places in the school, or you can vote online, which is very simple, through the website. So, very briefly, that's what we're about to get involved in. It's a little bit about the background. So when people now talk about school community, I hope you know what that is. It's all of you, teachers, administrative staff, and students. And what's unique about the AA is that we are a self-governing organisation, and we make decisions together, and we then inform our elected legal body what those decisions are. There is no other major academic organisation in the world that organises itself like that. I think that's very valuable, but it only works if everybody who is part of that school community takes a really active part in it. So it's very important that you don't just think, oh, this is some boring bit of bureaucracy, somebody else will do it, I don't need to bother, I'm sure somebody in some other unit will go and vote. It's very important that you vote, and of course in order to vote, it's very important that you have discussed and you know what it is that you're being asked to vote about. There's a whole range of people in the AA, mostly teachers, but some students who've been through this cycle before. who can be involved in discussions and help you. And as I said, members of council will also be available for a question and answer session. So that's all I wanted to say now. Otherwise, I think it overloads everything with too much detail. But can we start perhaps by today, in the next sort of 20 minutes, if people have particular questions or any points they want to raise now, before we close this meeting, and then we'll be able to open further discussion meetings later. So any questions or clarifications or points people want to raise? I wonder if the... Hang on a minute. So, is there a microphone? No, there's no microphone. Okay. Okay, so just a point that it is very, very important that we don't get a low turnout in the ballot. And in order to have a good turnout, obviously it's very important that everybody actually understands what it is you're being asked to vote about. So that's important. From a teacher who's been through the cycle many times before, and obviously we're all, everyone would reinforce that. It's very important that a large percentage of the school community actually takes part in this. Otherwise, we might say, well, why on earth do we bother with all of this? Let's just set up a bureaucracy and be governed by outsiders. Right, yes. Apparently on one of the questionnaires which is asking for opinion, there was only 13% of the school community who bothered to respond to that. Fortunately, on the ballot for the degree awarding powers, there was a turnout of over 60%, which is comfortable but not wonderful. As with any democracy, it only works if it is participatory, if people actually take part in it.
Will there be a shift or a change for the degree awarding powers? We'll say will we change directly, or will that still be?
That's entirely open. We have no idea. It would depend exactly what council wishes to do in terms of starting the appointment process. We need to seek a new director. It might be a new director would stand saying, if you elect me, I will abandon the whole of that because I think it's a waste of time. And then we take our own opinion on that.
And remember, if we stay going the way we are, what's been decided so far is to explore the degree awarding powers to a specific area, a specific point. And I think it's around about spring next year, we decide that we're going for it or not going for it. So
Yep.
the decision's been taken just to check it out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other points? Yes?
I mean, the answer to my question may well be it's just a bit smooth, but I was wondering why aren't the candidates?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer to my question may well be just because it's a tradition to do this. But I was wondering why aren't the candidates put forward first before actually voting?
Oh, if there were to be other candidates, you mean, for a post of director?
Anyone
Yeah.
running up for the position,
Yeah.
why are they not put first in the first place?
Yeah. Well, the procedure that we've followed since the 1970s was that the existing director or chairman would exchange with council whether or not they were interested in continuing. And if both sides felt that it was interesting to continue, then that would come first of all to the school community for their opinion. Because if the school community thinks that that's also a good idea, there's no point to go through the process of seeking other candidates and organising that search committee and then the interviewing process and so on. It's a very long, it takes about a year to do that, which is why we do this thing a year before the end of the contract. So it's a long and potentially disruptive process while we do that. Now, if there is no need to do that, in that the council as the governing body says, yes, we're happy to go on, the existing director says, yes, we're happy to go on, and the whole of the school community says, yes, we're happy to go on, then there wouldn't be any need to open up to say, well, if we didn't do that, why don't we do something else? If, however, any of those three parties says, no, actually, we don't want to go on, then we revert to the process of the school community, all of us, electing a search committee, and during that last year of the existing contract, starting the process of seeking with the aim of getting a new person in place to take over in 1 year's time. But it's a long and complicated process. You don't want to do them both in parallel if one of them's not necessary.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah, it is clear. But whenever you're voting for one candidate, say you're voting a bit in the dark. Say you may be frightened of change, and that's why you would take one decision or another.
Yeah.
So the term democracy is in a way, well, not patronized, but is in a way affected, because a decision may be taken because of a fright or something.
I suppose the decision was taken back in the 70s that if at the end of every contract we opened it up to a full process of search committee, open candidates, debates, and so on, the impact on the school in terms of that happening on a 4 or 5 year cycle would be pretty demanding on the school. So it's never really been proposed as a better model. It's something we could discuss in terms of reviewing the way we think that we do things from now. But the potential for that to create on a 4 year cycle or 5 year cycle a huge investment of time and energy in case there might be somebody interested and interesting out there who we would prefer has never been in the system as it is at the moment. But we could propose that that's something that the school community should consider for the future. Can we have... There's another one here, I think. Yep.
Could I just add to the points that have been made about separating a referendum from any possible search for a candidate? Because I think this gets asked each time, and it's important that people see that it's absolutely inevitable if you think about it. The fact of the matter is, imagine a situation where a chairman said, I'm happy to continue, but then, as it were, anyone else is invited to stand against them. First of all, no external candidates really would be likely to put themselves forward to stand against an already sitting chair. And so it's always been, I think, constitutionally understood that you would only ever have a process of searching for candidates, which is arduous, as Hugo points out, both for the school, but also, I have to say, for the candidates themselves. They don't want to kind of make an enormous investment in applying, as it were, for a job which actually may not be free. And so it's vital that we disaggregate the two questions, resolve the question of the current and immediately future director, and only if we don't have one after that do you move to the selection of candidates. And that's, I don't think any other system anyone could suggest wouldn't lead to enormous confusion and people not kind of putting themselves forward as well as being, in many ways, if you think about it, very unfair on an existing chair to have to somehow wait for a year to see what the result would be. So that's the system we have, and I'm quite sure it's the best one.
Any other points? Any further clarifications? There'll be, I hope, a whole series of meetings now over the next 3 weeks, at which further discussion and clarification. It might be useful to have discussions within units or across parts of the school where there's already some collaboration going on, rather than having sort of fragmentary meetings. So it might be that there may be a debate within a unit and someone could come and discuss with them. I think last time, 4 years ago, the student forum actually organised an open evening as well, which was very useful, where further clarification of some of the constitutional points was made. But it's up to you really to see what is the most effective way of everyone in the school community being well informed, and, as several people have said, of then becoming active in the ballots, so that we don't get to a position where it's fairly clear that the school community doesn't really any longer have much interest in the future of the AA, in which case, with a very low turnout, it is at risk of invalidating the model that we have. Okay, well, I'll draw it to a close then, if we have no other discussions now, and we'll pick it up again during the next 3 weeks. Thank you for coming. Don't forget the meeting on Friday.